Hi everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Bob here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So before we get into the watches, a big shout out to the Canadian watch fam. The Toronto Raptors took the NBA championship last night. The country's buzzing today. I'm really excited about it, although I have to admit I'm a little bit tired. I was up pretty late after the game, but today we're going to be talking about Marinemaster. It's been a few weeks now since I picked up the SLA 021. It quickly became a favorite in my collection. I just love the watch. Before I bought it, though, I was undecided as to whether or not I wanted one of the older ones or the latest one. I obviously picked the latest version, but hopefully if you're having that same struggle, today's video will help. A good friend of mine, Chris, who's also a big Raptors fan, lent in the OG Marinemaster, the SBDX001. So we're going to be doing a side-by-side comparison. I'd love to have the 017 here too, so we could look at all three. But for today, we have these two. So this isn't going to be a which is better video, because both of these watches are excellent watches. So big thanks to Chris for lending in the 001. If you're on Instagram, give him a follow at Seikoholic7. He's got an awesome collection. He's been supporting the channel for a long time now with lending in some of his watches. So again, thanks to him. So let's get into the Seikos. All right, so first up, neither of these watches are on their stock bracelets. Chris has his on a Crafter Blue and mine's on a strap code. I know the bracelets are a little different, but since I don't have both, we're going to leave those out of the equation today. This is the stock clasp here on the Crafter Blue, and I've gone over both with the calipers. I can't find any difference at all between the two. So there's some changes you can see visually and some not as apparent. Probably the biggest on the not so apparent front is the way in which the movement components are made. Seiko on the newer model here on the right, as well as the 017, are using MEMS technology in the production of some of the components of the movement. MEMS stands for Micro Electromechanical Systems, and it's essentially a more refined process to produce components like the escape wheel, the mainspring, the hairspring. I found a write-up on the Grand Seiko site that gives more detail that's worth a look if you're interested. It's probably worthy of a video on its own, but I'll leave a link below so you can check that out. So I would definitely consider that an improvement over the original, but that being said, this particular watch was produced in 2004. It's running consistently plus 4 to 5 seconds a day, so it's a solid movement either way. Next up is the materials, and there's three main changes when it comes to the materials they use. First is the sapphire crystal with AR, and you can see the reflection there. The AR really works. I think that's an upgrade most would favor over the Hardlex. Same goes for the ceramic insert. The insert is loomed from the triangle at the 12 to the 20-minute mark versus just the pip on the original. I always love more lume, but one question I have, and I'm not sure on this with the bezel lume, and especially on the triangle, it seems like the lume is exposed. You can feel sort of a roughish bulge there if you run your fingers along it. Maybe there's some sort of coating on it, but it feels like if you ever hit it on something, it could almost break. I might be wrong. I've never heard of a problem with it, but it's such a new watch, I guess only time will tell. The third material they're using that I kind of question the long-term durability of is the DiaShield coating on the newer models. It's a coating to make the watch more corrosion and scratch resistant. I've had a couple of watches using it, but it's another thing that I just wonder how it'll hold up over time. From what I understand, it's not easy and maybe even impossible to polish without sending back to Seiko. So yes, it's supposed to be more durable than without, but if I had the choice, I'd probably opt for the straight steel of the 001 here. I don't want to sound like the DiaShield and the possibly exposed lume are negatives on the newer model. They're just kind of question marks for me still. Now, one difference that I was surprised by was the bezel. They're actually quite different if we look at the side profile here. The new one is engraved a little bit differently. It also seems a fair amount thicker, although when I measure the total thickness of the case, I'm only getting about a 0.1 millimeter, maybe a 0.2 millimeter increase in size. The new model I find is easier to grip, although it's slightly tighter to turn. Good alignment. The older model, not as easy to grip but easier to turn, has a different feeling action altogether. That might be at least in part due to the fact that it's an older watch and maybe is broken in over the years. Both have a nice feel to use though. So I tried to find differences in the cases, and they're pretty well spot on to me. The finish work is very well done on both. The only difference I could find was there was some differences in the etch work on the case back. Actually, technically, there's no case back, I guess, with that monocoque or one-piece case design, but it's the same basic info there, but in slightly different spots. Seiko is etched arching over the logo on the new versus the straight Seiko on the old. Not that that really matters, but I just want to show you guys everything that I find here. Now, while we're looking at the case, there's a difference between the crowns, and this is where the hits the fan for some of you guys, and that is the dreaded Prospex X logo, and same goes for that X replacing the Marinemaster on the dial. I'm relatively new to collecting Seiko divers compared to some of you guys. The X came out around just shortly after I got into Seiko, so I'm kind of used to it and never had a problem with it. I know a lot would like to have this sort of separated from the Prospex line, and that makes sense with it being a superior watch to a lot of the Prospex models. I can get behind that. I do like the Marinemaster text on the original, and it would have been nice to see it somewhere, maybe even if they ditched the automatic text for Marinemaster and had it even alongside the Prospex logo or something. That might have been sort of the best of both worlds. When it comes to the hour markers, the 001 has more steel on the surrounds. It's a little thicker and bolder. The handset is pretty well the same other than the gold second hand that's matched with the gold depth rating on the dial. The SLA 021 has a new Lume formula, and you can hopefully see on camera here, it's a little bit of a creamier color, not as white as the original. So let's check out that Lume, and what can I say? Seiko Lume is just epic. Definitely no disappointment with either at all. The new formula is definitely brighter, and I do like the loomed bezel. Both are long lasting, nice and bright, but the SLA has an edge in the loom department. So I think that's everything. There's some other differences like the rubber straps they come with, but when it comes to the watches, I think we hit most of the points here. So let's get a look at these on wrist. And here is the SLA 021 first, and most of you guys will already know, but you'll find these with the reference number SBDX023 also. One little difference I meant to mention when it comes to the dials of this versus the older is the SLA is a deeper black. The 001, if you look at it on its own, looks black, but side by side it has almost a slate effect to it. It's just a little bit of a different look. As far as on wrist goes, I don't notice any difference when it comes to feel. They're a heavy watch, but Chris has his on the Crafter Blue, and what a difference that makes. It makes it a whole lot more comfortable on wrist. So let's swap over to that one. And here is the 001, and I have to say when I tried this on with the Crafter Blue the other night, I had one ordered within minutes. It really lightens the watch, but the rubber is sturdy enough to support the watch head. It just takes it to a whole other level, and I can't wait to get mine in. I think it just looks excellent on the watch. I like it on the bracelet too, but the rubber's the way to go, especially the Crafter Blue, I find. So let's get one last look side by side here. All right, so which of these is the better watch? Now, I don't think either is the better watch. On paper, the new version takes it for sure with the improvements. There's intangibles, though, with the original. First of all, it's the original. I think over time, and even now, that kind of adds to the collectability. Again, some of the cosmetic changes don't sit right with everyone, but if that's the case, I'd just stick to the original. Both of these watches are awesome. I've owned and handled quite a few Seikos now, and I have my top two right here. I'd be happy with either, and probably the 0172 for that matter. So that's it, guys. If I missed anything major, let me know down in the comments below. I blame that on the Raptors game last night. Thanks again to Chris for lending in this beauty for us to check out, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.